Hi team, in this video you're going to be learning about how the sun is the main source of energy for life, how cells get inputs from the sun and how they convert some of that energy into energy we can use. And to be successful after this lesson, you'll be able to tell the difference between autotrophs and heterotrophs, and you'll recognize the importance of photosynthesis. So consider this slide. Have a look. Here we've got the sun, and what is the sun doing? Well, it's shining sunlight down onto the earth, onto our plants, the leaves, and then the leaves end up being sources of energy for other animals, and then animals become sources of energy for other animals like the eagle catching the kangaroo, and of course we breathe in the oxygen and breathe out carbon dioxide, which all has this interplay. So we're going to have a bit of a closer look at that in a second. Right, so it all began with the plants. Plants came about because they were able to take carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere and then convert it into sugars so that they could create or produce energy for themselves. Then they breathe out, or they release at least, oxygen. Right, and it's this oxygen that actually allows animals, and us included, to breathe ourselves and produce energy ourselves. So we take this oxygen and we breathe out carbon dioxide. That goes back into the atmosphere, and the plants can then recycle that and make oxygen again. So what you can see, these two equations here are photosynthesis and respiration, and they're the basis of life on Earth. So if we have plants, then we have animals. Animals can eat plants and they breathe out, and the plants breathe in what we breathe out. It's beautiful. Okay, so we've got some special names for our plants and our animals, right? We've seen that the sun provides light energy for photosynthesis. This is the basis of food chains, right? Plants are at the bottom, and then things eat the plants, animals and other things, and then other animals and us eat the animals we consume, etc., etc. So the light energy for photosynthesis is the basis of life on Earth. We would not be here without the sun. The sun also produces heat energy that keeps us at a stable temperature, and we've learned a lot about enzymes, and that's the reason in particular that it's important to stay at a fairly constant temperature. If it was too hot, then our enzymes would denature, as we know. Right, so some organisms, like plants, make their own energy. Right, they take the energy from the sun, they convert that energy into sugars, and then the sugars can be broken down to produce cellular energy. Organisms that can make their own energy from inorganic things like sunlight are called autotrophs. A photoautotroph is a type of autotroph that converts sunlight into sugars that can then be used for energy. A chemoautotroph, or a chemotroph, can take chemicals like hydrogen sulfide and they can produce energy from that. And those kinds of things are like special bacteria. A heterotroph is a organism that needs to get its food from other organisms, so it needs to eat other things. So anything that eats something else to get energy is called a heterotroph. Right, so let's have a closer look at photosynthesis. So we've mentioned how photosynthesis is the process where autotrophs can convert light energy into sugars or chemical energy, and then that can be used to produce cellular energy, both by plants, yes, and we use sugars produced by plants to make our own energy as well. So I want to direct your gaze down to the bottom little diagram here. So we know that light is made up of multiple wavelengths. All of the colors of the rainbow are different wavelengths of light. So what you can see is that over in red here, we've got smaller wavelengths, and then as we move this way, the wavelengths increase, the distance of the wavelengths increase. sorry, this is more the indigo side, and over here we've got our red side, longer wavelengths. All right, what this is showing you is the rate of photosynthesis at different wavelengths. So let's have a think about this. If we have purple or blue light over here, we can see that photosynthesis is high, and here, red light, photosynthesis is high. Over here in the green, photosynthesis is actually at its lowest. So if we have a think about what this actually means or why that is, why don't we consider why are plants green, right? Well, what makes them actually green is because they absorb wavelengths, they absorb colors that are not green, and that's the energy that they absorb, that's the energy that they use for photosynthesis. They actually reflect green wavelengths, and that's why they look green. So if they reflect green wavelengths, and that's what we see, then they're the wavelengths that they're not using for photosynthesis. So hopefully that makes sense. All right. So within the leaves over here, what we have are organelles that exist in the cells, and this organelle is called a chloroplast. Now, a chloroplast contains some structures. We have a double membrane. There's the outer membrane and the inner membrane, and with the space in between is called the intermembrane space. And then we've got these stacks of discs, right? The stacks of discs are called grana or granum, singular, and each individual disc is called a thylakoid. All right, so, and the liquid in the middle, in between all those grana is called the stroma. So the business happens at these thylakoids or at the grana. This is where photosynthesis happens, within and across those membranes. The reaction that happens is this reaction here. So at the bottom there, we can see, firstly, we've got our word equation. So you absolutely need to know what the word equation is, where plants absorb carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and they take water from the soil, and then they use light energy from the sun and they convert these chemicals, carbon dioxide and water, into glucose. And for them, a waste product is oxygen, and they release the oxygen again into the atmosphere. Now, what makes this conversion possible is a small pigment molecule called chlorophyll. So all you really need to know about chlorophyll at this stage is that it exists in the chloroplast, and without chlorophyll, photosynthesis does not happen. It's actually what makes the plant green. So when you write a word equation for photosynthesis, this is what you write, and you must include the conditions, the environmental conditions, that there is sunlight present and chlorophyll present in order for that conversion to happen. And for our chemists, you may get asked to recall this equation as well. This is the chemical equation. It's a good idea as a biologist to know this, right? We've got 6 molecules of carbon dioxide reacting with 6 molecules of water, and that goes to 1 molecule of glucose and 6 molecules of oxygen as products. This is photosynthesis. Okay, so there are some limiting factors for photosynthesis. So limiting factors are factors that can stop or hinder photosynthesis from happening. So there's really a few key things. Firstly, the temperature. There are lots of enzymes involved in photosynthesis. So the temperature is all about enzymes, and this enzyme graph may look familiar to you. The light intensity is really important. The more intense the light is, the higher the rate of photosynthesis, up until a point, up until there is a plateau. All right, and the same goes with the concentration of carbon dioxide. Because carbon dioxide is a reactant, then if we increase the carbon dioxide, then we increase the rate of photosynthesis. This plateau happens because at that point, each particular factor is no longer the limiting factor. Something else is limiting photosynthesis. So at this point here, for light intensity, perhaps we don't have enough carbon dioxide to continue that photosynthesis going on. And in the same sort of way, if we have increase in carbon dioxide, perhaps the light intensity doesn't increase enough. So these are limiting factors for the rate of photosynthesis.